It can't hurt.
Works for me. Okay. So I really am so grateful to Judy and Heather Robinson for giving us this opportunity to bring Sami here today. So, and to Mindy and to Jackie Goldblum, thank you for bringing your students from Yeshiva Boys and from the Community Day School. What a great group this morning. We're able to do this because Chabad of the South Hills is sponsoring this visit. And as Sami and I have just discussed, we hope that this is the first of many interactions that we'll have in the Pittsburgh area. So I want to just turn it right over. You're not here to listen to me. Thank you all very much for being here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
At my age, you think I'm hearing? Again, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, that's much better. Okay, I'm very happy to be here. In addition of being an American, I'm also an Israeli citizen. I served in the Israeli Air Force, and I grew up the Orthodox way. Today I'm not practicing, but you can ask me questions on any subject that you want, personal and non-personal. In addition of being a Holocaust survivor, I am also a motivational speaker. I use personal challenges that I had to overcome. I do not want you to feel sorry for me, but what I do expect is for you to learn how I overcame those challenges and to learn under any circumstances, never to give up, never to lose hope. You have here, I'm going to show you two clips. As you know, the Holocaust is commemorated twice a year. The first time in January 27, when the most infamous death camp, Auschwitz-Birkenau, was liberated by the Red Army. So this year we celebrated the 75th year. The World Jewish Congress started 4 years ago to a program called We Remember. By the way, excuse me 1 second. I need a big banner. We Remember. Take a picture.
Okay.
So I was very honored to be a representative 2 years ago and at the same time in this year. The World Jewish Congress realized that a lot of people are unaware of the Holocaust. The other time that the Holocaust is commemorated is the Yom HaShoah. And because in the Hebrew calendar we have 13 months, obviously it does not fall always in the same day. Okay, and the Yom HaShoah is commemorated for a different reason. It's commemorated for the first Hebrew day of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, and that is the Yom HaShoah. Before I'm going to show you the clips and everything else, about 4 months ago, I realized when I'm going to campuses, I'm going to schools, that very few people know about the background. And most of the people, what they know is that 6 million died, or were murdered actually. For me, the Holocaust is not a Jewish issue. It is a universal issue. 11 million people were murdered, 6 million were Jews, but 5 million were non-Jewish people. So therefore, it's very important for me also to go to non-Jewish communities and schools. How many of you know that when the Nazis came to power, they did not want to kill the Jews? Very few of you. Okay. And that is something that a lot of people do not know. What they wanted to do is they wanted to have a Germany free of Jews, Judenfrei. So in 1935, they came out with the Nuremberg laws. They were so draconic that from between 600,000 and 800,000 Jews that lived in Germany, at the beginning of the war, only 200,000 remained. A lot of the Jews remained in Germany because the Jewish leadership told them to stay because this was the most enlightened country in the world and it cannot get worse. The other thing that is important for you to also to understand is when the war started. And by the way, for you to understand that the Jews fought for Germany in World War I. The Jews considered themselves Germans first, Jews second. But the Germans considered them Jews. So as assimilated as you're going to be or you want to be, okay, for the rest of the population, you will always be a Jew. Okay. Interestingly enough, when the war started, they occupied Europe. Occupation means that they still have some, okay, autonomy. They have certain laws they can still, perform. But there was one problem with Poland, which most of the people do not know. Poland, although it was the first country attacked, Poland was not occupied. Poland was annexed. And if you don't know what it means, when you annex something, that becomes part of the country. It's the same thing like, for instance, in Israel, they annexed the Golan Heights. So Golan Heights is now Israel. Okay, the same thing happened in Poland. When they annexed it, that became the greater Germany. So here in Germany proper, they did not want the Jews. And all of a sudden they found in Poland 3.3 million Jews. What do you would do with them? And that slowly, there were many, many reasons why the Holocaust happened, but it is also a very major factor, okay, for the Holocaust. And there is not one single explanation why. Anti-Semitism played a very big role, and there were other reasons. But I wanted to give you the background for you to understand that it's not something that's happening. Everything was gradual, was happening today in the United States and okay, all over the world with anti-Semitism. The other interesting thing is, I'm going to ask you a question. What does it mean to you, 6 million? What does it mean? I mean, I'm telling you, 6 million died. What does it mean? Can you imagine with 6 million? No. I'll give you an example. Stand up, please. Imagine yourself. What's your name?
Yo.
Your?
Yo.
Okay. Imagine yourself that he is going to stand for 1 minute for a Holocaust survivor and keep silent. Okay? Now imagine yourself for 1 minute, it's easy, right? Now imagine yourself that he is going to stand 1 minute for every Holocaust victim. How long will it take him to stand on his feet and be silent? I'm going to tell you, 11.5 years. That will give you a perspective of what 6 million means. That clear? Okay, I also do not want you to think of 6 million murdered. Okay? Because it's a number. I want you to think of 6 million individual murders. It's a totally different perspective. Thank you. Give him a nice hand. How many of you have been at the football stadium? Imagine yourself, okay, that the people that fill a stadium. They have a minimum of 50,000, the big stadiums. Imagine yourself that every single day, 50,000 people are murdered. Every single day. I just wanted to give you a perspective so to understand the magnitude of the Holocaust. Another fact which I found out only recently, in 2013, there was an article in New York Times and in Daily Mirror in London. The thing that shocked me, the Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different types of camps. The magnitude, this is the most recorded and the biggest crime in human history. We will never know what really happened and the extent of what happened. And later on, you will have an opportunity to see there is a poem written, okay, by Judy, okay, to honor, okay, Patrick Dubois. Patrick Dubois, he's a priest, a French priest, has a group called Achad Uno. I met him twice. He went to Ukraine. Right now he's going to Iraq, Iran, other countries. But he started with Ukraine and went to small towns. He did not accuse anybody, but he wanted to know if anybody knew something, remembered something from World War II. Nobody knew anything. Nobody remembered anything. But everyone gave a piece of information that by itself was totally meaningless. However, Patrick Dubois, with his team, were able to connect the dots, and they found out additional 85 mass graves that the world never knew. So I want you to understand, as much as we know, we don't know and will never know the full extent of what really happened. So what I'm going to do, so like I told you, I gave you the background of the videos, so let's play the first one. So this was done 2 years ago. I'm very proud that they selected me to be the representative. It was shown last year. In this year, you will see the second one, okay, they're trying to reach 1 billion people worldwide, and we will have a banner written, "We Remember," and we will take together a picture and we'll post it on social media to reach that goal. And hopefully you will do it individually and post it on social media, because this has been shown in 24 countries, 24 languages, 120 countries. I'm Sami. When I was a year and a half, my family was forced into a labor camp. As a child, I was subjected to Nazi medical experimentation. I almost died of starvation, but a German woman saved my life. While I do not know what tomorrow will bring, I do know this. Almost half of the world population does not know that the Holocaust occurred. It did. About 1/3 believe that the Holocaust is a myth or exaggerated. It isn't. And young people are far less aware of the Holocaust. It is heartbreaking. Yet now, you have the power to share the truth easily. So today, I ask you, please help others learn the truth. Take your picture holding a sign that says, "We remember." Share it with everyone you know on social media. Join the global campaign for the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Make sure that the horrors of the Holocaust are known and never forgotten. Not yet. Not the other. Now, you heard two things. Number one, that I was subjected to medical experiments. I will tell you more a little bit about my life, but right now, I am not, to your surprise, against medical experiments. They use them today to save lives. I am using it the way it was used in those days. Number one, okay, they did it without the people's consent. Number two, they did not tell them the consequences of those experiments. But most importantly, they did it in ways that you would not treat an animal. I'll give you a very example that is not the worst one. Most of the experiments was called pseudo-scientific. They called it scientific, but they were not. So it's called pseudo-scientific. However, they did some of the experiments for very good reason. And I'll give you one example that did it for very good reason. They used to take people, not only Jews, and put them in freezing water and time it until they froze to death. They actually froze to death. The reason that they did is when they occupied Europe, within 2 weeks, almost every country surrendered. And they were convinced that the Russians will surrender. And they did not. And they got caught in the bitter cold of the Russian front. They did not have the proper clothing, so they wanted to do the experiment to see how long they can fight under those conditions until the proper clothing will arrive to them. But that was one of the very, very few, okay, reasons. But still, they did it in inhumane ways, okay? They could have done it with animals, whatever it is, but they did it with actual human beings. All my life, I suffered, and I will die in pain. I suffered from head, neck, back, shoulder. Because of my age, last December I reached a milestone. I'm 80 years old. I'm the youngest survivor you will ever meet. Interestingly enough, I'm also having difficulty with my legs, working, climbing stairs, whatever. But I'm coming from a generation that was very stoic. You will not see it on my face. And the difficulty in my particular case diagnosing or treating whatever I have is because it's not localized, it's shifting. And it goes from one place to another. The intensity is different and everything else. It's very difficult to diagnose. To give an example, I had a friend of mine, neurosurgeon, and he put me in the hospital for traction because I lost numbness in both of my hands. And he did something for my neck, my back hurt. Did something for my back, my neck hurt. I said, can you do something simultaneously, to alleviate the pain? He said, no. I said, you're my good friend, thank you, but I'm going home. So that's part of the problem that I'm having. And as you grow older, as you have less stress in your life, stress also aggravates pain. Okay, my pain has subsided. I used to be an extremely powerful medication because I did not use it for recreation. I did not get addicted, but it took me about close to 1 year to learn to live without the painkillers because I did not like the side effects. The second one that you heard in the clip is that my life was saved by German work. Being deported in a labor camp at age 1.5 years, obviously I could not work. And if you will ask any survivor, and I hope that you heard other survivors, everyone will use only one word: luck. There is no rhyme, there is no reason why somebody lived, somebody died. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. I was not in Germany, I was not in Poland, I was not in the concentration camp. I was in a labor camp in Ukraine. We were deported by the Romanians, not by the Germans. And what happened is, after the medical experiments, they had no use for me. So a lot of people died through attrition, hunger, disease. Okay, they were beaten to death, shot randomly. So when somebody dies of starvation, there are physical signs: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. Not far away from the camp where I was, there was a farm owned by Germans. And the woman brought food to the guards in the SS. So she had access to the camp. And when she saw me with the physical signs that I'm dying of starvation, she decided to give me milk. I wanted to understand the courage of the people that saved strangers. If you paid attention, I did not use the word Jews. Okay? A lot of Jews were there, but there were other groups of people. People that save strangers are called, anybody knows what they are called?
Heroes. Heroes.
No. That's a very good answer. But there is another word that I want all you to repeat with me. Righteous among the nations.
Righteous among the nations.
Come on, guys. A little energy. Again.
Righteous.
Thank you. If you are energized, so will I. So will be I. And if you're going to fall asleep, so will I. Okay, interestingly enough, okay, I do not know the name of the person that saved my life. And next to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, Yad Vashem, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people who saved Jews. I am unable to honor her, but I was extremely happy seeing a Malka honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. So indirectly, okay, she is honored. Let's see the second clip. This one, by the way, was shown this year. Okay? My name is Sami Steigmann. I am a Holocaust survivor. We were deported by the Romanians to a labor camp in an area called Transnistria. The Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different camps. Basically, my parents were slaves. Since I was very young, a year and a half, my life was spared because I was subjected to medical experiments. But later on, when I came to the stage that I was dying of starvation, a German woman who had access to the camp gave me milk. We have given it. We are not going to live forever. We must educate young people so they can become, okay, not only knowledgeable, but to become active, to make sure that it does not happen not only to the Jewish people, but any other group. Join the We Remember campaign, right? We remember on a piece of paper. Take a photo, hold it aside. Share your photo on social media. Together, we can ensure that the best will never be forgotten. I want to bring right now things to the present. It's not sufficient, okay, we learned about the Holocaust, it happened, okay, so what? What do we do next? We have right now a rise in anti-Semitism. And by the way, I want you to understand, it starts with the Jews. It does not end there. It's very important for you to understand. All the tragedies in the world, genocide, Holocaust, can be summarized with one word. And that is, okay, being a bystander. I do not want either of you, and I'm assuming that this is not happening in your case, but in many schools it does happen. Okay, and that the tragedies can be summarized also with another word, and that is bullying. You can bully a person, you can bully a group of people. But I teach when I go to schools not to be a perpetrator. And people do not understand what a perpetrator is. A perpetrator is somebody that hurts somebody else. Two conditions. Number one, intentionally. And number two, don't forget, repeatedly. So I do not want you to be a bystander. And if you are saying, well, it doesn't happen to me, it's not my problem, you are part of the problem. I want you to become an upstander. Tell somebody, don't keep silent, okay? And I want you to speak up. And to become an upstander and be part of the solution. This is your world. And when you hear a lie, you must confront and say it's a lie. And I'll give you 3 examples. I do not use names, but I do attack when people say things and they are not true. I'll give you an example with Israel, so you can relate, and then you'll understand what I'm talking here in the States. Jewish people, okay, call Judea and Samaria West Bank. It is not West Bank. You cannot occupy your own land. That's a fact. But people say, okay, there is a difference between to occupy and when you say word occupy, that's confrontation. You will not resolve it. It has to be said disputed territory. When you use the word disputed, that can lead to a dialogue. So we have to be very careful when you use certain words and to use, okay, please do not use the word occupy like other people do, okay, what the media does. Say it, disputed territory. That has to become the narrative, especially from the Jewish people, okay, and at the same time, okay, call it Judea and Samaria, not West Bank. In the United States, okay, somebody said, a leader of this country, I'm not going to use the name, if you know, fine, if you don't know, good, also good, said that Holocaust is happening in the world. And that's a lie. If we don't stand up and call it a lie, this is part of the problem of the Jewish leaders in Congress and in the Senate. And they keep silent. If you don't do it, that becomes a false narrative. There's a difference between genocide, there's a difference between Holocaust. Genocide is made out of 2 words. Geno, which means group, side means murder. It's the murder of a group. Holocaust is the annihilation of a group. The Nazis and their collaborators wanted to murder every single Jew from the face of the earth. And they wanted to open up a museum. They were going to call it the Museum of the Extinct Race. The Jews are not a race. Race was invented by the Nazis because you cannot, okay, eliminate, you cannot, okay, hatred, anti-Semitism, ideology, but a race you can eliminate from the face of the earth. So they created that the Jews are a race. I want you to understand that because the Nazis were very clever in what they did. But there is no ethnic group today, anywhere in the world, slated to be completely annihilated from the face of the earth. So genocide is happening, but not Holocaust. So when you hear somebody says that Holocaust is happening, tell them it's not true. Genocide, yes. I'll give you, for instance, another example. Somebody else mentioned that there are concentration camps in this country. And I've been in campuses, and I've seen even Jewish students believe that to be true. Guess what? There are no concentration camps in this country. But I, as a Holocaust survivor, use the word concentration camp, but it has to be in a different context. How many of you have heard of a group of people called Uyghur? Who are they?
They're the Muslims in China that are
Very good.
Yeah.
The Muslims in China, correct. So I want you to understand, I do not fight only anti-Semitism because that is only about one group of people. I fight hatred. I have been asked to speak on their behalf. And you may be surprised, as much as I know very little. and I had no idea who the Uyghur people were. And as I did some research, I found out that during World War II, in former Soviet Union, if the Jews did not want to be deported to Siberia and to face other dire consequences, they went to the south, like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan, they are the Muslims, their language is close to the Turkish one, and they received the Jews with open arms. When the former Soviet Union dissolved, they have their own country, they can determine their own future. But in China, there are 15 million Chinese. And about 2 years ago, they started deporting them in the so-called re-education camps. I lived in a communist country. I can tell you, unequivocally, has nothing to do with education. Number one, they are deported. They are tortured. They are forced to give up their heritage, their traditions. And they are forced to accept the Chinese culture. As a matter of fact, if they would marry a Chinese person, they would automatically get a house and a car. But apparently, they're just as stubborn as the Jewish people, and they don't want to give up. And the families here in the United States, okay, do not know the fate of the family, if they're still alive, if they're not alive. They're afraid to call the families because they might be deported. So in the proper context, you can use concentration camp, not what's happening in the South. In the South, if you want to make a comparison, you can make it a comparison to the DP camps, displacement camps. These were after the war run by the Allies. And the main difference between the DP camps and the concentration camp is one thing. There is no threat of being killed. So I want you to separate. There are many other examples, but I just want to give you 2 examples. When you hear a lie, stand up, be an upstander. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I will show you after that how the neo-Nazis used me as an example that the Holocaust did not happen, and then I'm going to open up for Q&A because there's a lot of information. For 63 years, I ignored being a Holocaust survivor. I belong to 2 generations. I'm a Holocaust survivor, but I'm a child of Holocaust survivors because both of my parents survived. I have no memory of that period of time. For me, it is a blessing in disguise. I don't have to relive those horrors every single day like the older generation. My parents did not talk about it, at least not in front of me. They wanted me to grow up, to have a normal childhood. Only when I started to speak 12 years ago did I realize for the first time that my childhood was not a normal one. The Holocaust survivors did not speak until 1961, when there was in Israel the trial of Adolf Eichmann. At that particular trial, there was another trial, the Nuremberg trial, but that was not about the Holocaust. It was to bring the high-ranking Nazi criminals to justice. But in Israel, at the Eichmann trial, okay, about 102 survivors spoke. It was shown all over the world for 3 months, 3 hours every single day. And that is when the Holocaust survivors for the first time felt empowered. They did not feel any more guilty, ashamed, or like victims, and they started to talk. By that time, I did not ask any questions. I was probably your age, okay, and I didn't think too much about it. Interestingly enough, in 2003, November 1st and November 2nd, the Holocaust Museum of Washington, D.C. closed its doors to the general public for 2 days. It opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, and their liberators. There were over 8,000 people from all over the world. Who knows how do you say meant to be in Yiddish? Nobody?
Basheret.
Say it again?
Basheret.
Good, so make it all of them to say the, okay. Loud.
Basheret.
Basher. Come on, kid. Guys, give me a break. I want to hear it. Basher.
Basheret.
Thank you. Okay. So, meant to be over 8,000 people from all over the world. You know, the table where I'm sitting, I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, same years, 1941, 1944. He was taken when he was 8 months old, I was taken him when I was a year and a half. That is the difference between history and living history. And that's what you do right now. This is living history for you. You are meeting someone, you have the opportunity to ask questions. And by meeting him, that gave me the feeling that I belong to both generations. So that prompted me to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor and do something about it. And in 2007, I joined the second largest Holocaust museum in the US, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust in New York. And in 2008, I got my first assignment. I'm going to put you on a spot. Obviously, you spoke public. Was your first presentation the best one? No.
No.
Was it the most complete?
It was not. It was not.
I did not have a story. I did not know that I can tell a story. And here it is, speaking to sixth grade and not knowing what impact I will have. What was the word in Yiddish that I taught you? Thank you. Guess what? The kids sent me thank you letters. Each one better than the other. But one sixth grader changed my life forever. She wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming. And I promise I'll pass your story to my children. When I saw that I have that impact on such young people in my first presentation, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to reach as many young people as I can, nationally and internationally. So please repeat after me, because a lot of people do not realize what I'm going to tell you. But please repeat to me, and then you can think about it. To the world, I may be one person.
To the world, I may be one person.
But one person, I am the world.
But one person, I am the world.
We don't live in a vacuum. We impact, that you don't have to. But we always have an impact on somebody else, and somebody else impacts on us. So remember that all of you, but you have to believe in yourself, can make a difference in this world. Okay? Let's take a look at this one. Who knows what this particular picture has to do with the Holocaust? You're wondering, right? Guess what? Absolutely nothing. But I'm a motivational speaker. And like I told you, so I'm using this particular picture to teach you something. Like I told you before, about 3 years ago, I started having difficulty walking long distances, going down an incline, and climbing stairs. And in October of 2018, I was invited to speak in Mexico, and among other things, to visit the highest pyramid, the Aztec pyramid to the sun. My goal was never to reach the top. And the stairs, when I was there, are about this high, okay, uneven, about 7 or 8 levels. All I wanted to do is to reach the first level. But remember one thing, each little success will prompt you to go further. Don't stop okay, if you achieve what you wanted, go further. Once I reached the first one, I said, wow, how about trying the second one? I found the second one. And step by step, little by little, I reached the top. And right now you just met the Jewish Rocky Balboa. Okay, next. Okay, we'll go through. Okay, first. That's history versus living history. Okay, next. Okay, this is the letter that I told you, the young girl that wrote to me. Okay, next. Okay, next. Okay. It's basically that you can you can change somebody's life. Okay, next. I'll tell you when to stop. Oh yeah. Okay, let's stop here. One more. One more. As you can see here, everything that is here in white is Romania. I was born in Chernobyl, which is outside of Romania, and I was in an area of Ukraine called Transnistria, and the name of the camp was Mogilev-Podolsk. One more. Okay? That was the camp where I was. Because we were deported by the Romanians in 1946, that area became part of the former Soviet Union. The Romanians allowed a small group of Jews, approximately 3,000, to repatriate. My father was born here in Vantradorne. So he opted, he was an anti-communist at that time, and he opted to choose the lesser of the two evils, and we returned to Romania, and I grew up here in Transylvania. So you just met the Jewish Dracula. Okay, next. Okay. Next. Next. I'll tell you when to start.
I'm trying.
Okay? Next. Next. Okay. I want you to understand the Nazis were not the only bastards. So were the Italians, so were the French, so were the Hungarians, so were the Poles, so were the Ukrainians, so were the Romanians. In every war there are acts of sabotage. In the reprisal for an act of sabotage, the Romanian troops rounded up 19,000 Jews and burned them alive. As a Holocaust survivor, I will never understand the inhumanity of man towards man. Okay, so, okay. Very briefly, okay, I tell people, okay, not to dare to tell me that I changed, I'm still the same, except that right now I have one major difference. I have a neck. As you can see, I was a chubby little boy. Next. Okay, to make me look, this is after the war. My sister was born when Elie Wiesel was born. Okay, that was when we came back in 1946 from the former Soviet Union to Romania. And to make me look like a big boy, my father put a cigarette in my hand. Next. Okay, being in the camp, I was not as developed as the other kids. She was in my class, he was in my class, but you can see here, the whitest, ugliest kid on the block. Okay, this is what I want to talk. There is something that everybody is looking at me, but nobody asked me the question. And does anybody know what question I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Yes?
What experiments they did?
Say it again?
What experiments did they do?
No, that's not the question. The question is, since I have no memory of that period of time, my parents did not talk about it. How did I find out that I was subjected to medical experiments? My parents never knew that I'm in pain. I was close to 40. And I was in one of those days that I was on the floor, almost unable to move, absolutely excruciating pain. And suddenly my parents came in. My father, for the first time seeing me in such pain, was in shock. And he told me inadvertently, he did not want to tell me, but inadvertently that was subjected to medical experiments. It did not help me with the pain, but it gave me the courage to apply for compensation. Next. To apply for compensation, you have to know one of three things. Even here in the States, nobody will pay you money. But number one, you have to know what happened. Number two, you have to have documents. I had no documents because I was homeless, and I'll tell you more about it, how I recovered from being homeless. And at the same time, when I applied, on February 8, 2002, everybody was gone, including my parents. So I just sent it out to say, okay, I did it, not expecting anything. To my surprise, on January 26, 2004, 2 years later, I received an answer. To my shock, I got paid. One single payment, 2,500 German marks, much stronger than the dollar, came out to $5,348.36. Financially, it did not make a huge difference in my life. But there are two paragraphs that are important to me and to you. Based on the information and evidence you provided. What evidence? Your eligibility has been established as a victim of medical experiments. It was not done based on what I said, it was done based on their records. And by the way, when I talked to you about 42,500 camps, they did not have camps that were, wired. If they took people, like for instance, let's assume this is a town, and let's assume they brought you to a plaza, and they shot all of you, that was considered a camp. That's why they had 42,500 different type of camps. If they took them to the forest, they were whatever. So I wanted to understand that it's not camps that were with wires. The second paragraph, and this one I want you to remember because it's very important, because you will talk about Holocaust deniers. Fully aware that no amount of money can compensate you for the severe injustice that you suffered, we do hope that you will regard this payment as a symbolic acknowledgement, which means that the German government admits that they did medical experiments not only in Auschwitz. They did it in other countries. Is that clear? That is very important for the next thing. Next. So I will go for the 8th year in a row. Next month I'm going to Bayonne, New Jersey, and I will speak to about 735 7th graders. And interestingly enough, in 2015, a reporter was there. Go down. And I'll tell you what to start. Take a look at the headline. Holocaust survivor who underwent Nazi medical experiments shares the story of the Bayonne 7th grader. Beautiful. By the way, people use the word Nazis. There are no Nazis anywhere in the world. They are today's young people that believe in the Nazi ideology. They are called neo-Nazi. So the neo-Nazis in New Jersey, they are very strong. They picked that article word by word. They changed the headline. Jew Holocaust claims Nazi medical experiment he can't remember still causes pain. It took me about 2.5 months, 3 months, to realize they called me 3-time a liar. Holocaust, made out of 2 words, Holocaust, hoax. Hoax has never happened. If it never happened, how can I talk about it? Obviously, I'm a liar. Medical experiments you can't remember. That's true. but they don't give you the reason why I don't remember, because obviously the doctors did not come to my parents and tell them this is what we did to your son. They did not know, I don't know. So they use innuendos and still cause them pain. You will not see it on my face. It's up to you to believe me or not to believe me, but it's not a proof that I'm a liar. Do you understand that? Okay, now, take a look. Unlike the millions of other Jew hoaxers, he somehow was not experimented by Joseph Mengele. Take a look how clever they are. Millions of people are not liars. Millions of people are not experimented. And the insinuation is that Joseph Mengele, a single man, performed millions of experiments. If you don't pay attention to every single word, it passes through you and it sounds plausible. If you don't know who Joseph Mengele was, he was the angel of death. He was in Auschwitz, he separated who will live, who will die. He supervised medical experiments, but when he did medical experiments, he did it only on twins. So you see how clever. Take a look what they do. This Jew is nothing but a lying crack. When you portray a person or a group of people by the name of an animal, you dehumanize them. When you dehumanize somebody, that is a license to hurt them. These Jews need to be banned from speaking to students. Instead, they need to be locked up, so they can spread hatred. I am not supposed to speak about it. Okay. So the one thing what I want you to do, not everything that you hear, not everything that you read, not everything that you see is the whole truth. Do me a favor. There are enough sources, enough people knowledgeable. Do the research. You can very easily, if you don't do research, you easily fall into the trap. And that's how they recruit a lot of young people. There is a lot more, but I want to open it up for Q&A, and I will answer your personal questions. Okay, please. Yes. What happened is, for 2 years, we were wandering somewhere in the former Soviet Union. I don't remember. Maybe my parents talked about it, but I don't remember. All I know is that in 1946, we came to Romania. In 1961, the whole family went to Israel. I served in the Israeli Air Force, 62, 65. And in 1968, I came to the United States by myself. By the way, people have asked me to talk about refugees. Today, there are many countries that accept refugees. Whether you know it or not, during that time, there were only 3 countries that officially accepted Jewish refugees. One of them is China. From 42 people from my father's side, only 2 survived. My uncle was not a survivor, he was a refugee in Shanghai. The other country was Dominican Republic. And if you want, I can tell you something about it. And the third one is Philippines. I will be honest with you, I did not do the research, and I don't know too much about how many Jews they did. But these were the only 3 official countries that accepted Jews. China was able to save 25,000 Jews. They couldn't save more because China was invaded by Japan, and the Japanese were much more cruel to the Chinese than to the Jewish people. Yes, there was somebody else over there with a question. Yes.
How did you end up being homeless?
You had a good question. I got involved with the wrong people. Now, I told you I'm a motivational speaker, so I'll tell you how I overcame being homeless, and I'll tell you about another thing. I have a son. I have 2 grandchildren. And I'm not allowed to be in touch with them. And that's what I want you to learn from me. Never to give up, never to lose hope. When I became homeless, I'm not a sick person, I didn't break it, I hope.
No, you didn't. I want it not to move
Okay.
quickly on it.
So, I'm not a sick person, and I tried to commit suicide. In the last minute, I wanted to see my father. He lived in Israel, and after that, I said, that I will recover. And I'll tell you, if you want, how the decision to make that decision, I will recover. But interestingly enough, and I want all of you to do that, and I'm quite sure that a lot of you do it, I recovered from it by volunteer. And I'll give you only 2 examples. At one time, I volunteered for 18 different organizations because each one gave me something. The first one was Big Apple Greeter. They still exist. And if any one of you goes to New York, call them up, and they will assign to you somebody that will show you, okay, any part of New York that you want to see. And it's for free. I did it for 17 years because of my difficulties with my legs. Last year, after 17 years, I had to stop. But here it is. It gave me several things. Number one, the human connection. I've learned, I met people from all over the world, and I've learned about different cultures. And today, if I would have the money, I could travel almost anywhere in the world, and somebody will host me, somebody will show me the city they live on. I am one of the 1/3 of Holocaust survivors that live under the poverty line. I live in Manhattan, the most expensive city in the country. I have a monthly income of $1,299, and I still smile. Okay? So that's why I'm giving an example, never to give up, and I live, okay, according to the means that I have and everything else. Okay. By the way, my motto in life is I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. And I choose to be a happy person. One other thing that I want you to understand, to be victimized, remember, say that after me. To be victimized is universal.
To be victimized is universal.
Victimhood is optional.
Victimhood is optional.
So remember, it's up to you if you want to become a victim or if you're going to do something about it and overcome. So this is how I overcame, okay, by volunteer. The other example, I used to volunteer for an organization that does not exist called HAI. My job was to pick up tickets and to distribute to people, underprivileged people like myself. I had 2 perks. Number 1, I could see the show. And number 2, I could be a nice guy. I could invite somebody to come with me. I have seen Broadway shows. And if you don't know Broadway shows that are expensive, I'll give you one example. I don't know if you heard of a show called The Book of Mormons at one time. The ticket was $800. No show is worth that kind of money. But I've been able to see Broadway show more than you can think of. I've been to sports events, baseball, basketball, football, college football. Okay, even to a show that I would never watch on TV. I have no idea what's happening. But going to Madison Square Garden, it's absolutely exciting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's wrestling. Okay, it's absolutely fantastic to go. It's a whole show. It's an excitement. It's an experience. Whenever I had the occasion, I would go. But on TV, I would never watch. Okay, I would not pay a penny. Okay. So here it is. I gave you 2 examples. Okay, by volunteering, and you are not going to volunteer for something you don't like. You will get a lot more than what you put. Okay. Yes.
Has a neo-Nazi or
I'm sorry. Say it again.
have you ever approached a neo-Nazi or has a neo-Nazi ever approached you and had
Okay.
an argument?
With the neo-Nazis, that was my experience. Personally, no. I had an encounter, I was in Germany, but I was in Germany doing something else. It is very difficult. By the way, you did not ask me about my son, my grandchildren. I'll tell you about it. But, you know, it's easy to talk about something. Intellectually, I'm very good to talk about it. But how do I feel if I would meet somebody? So I was invited to go to Germany to meet descendants of high-ranking Nazi criminals. I was hesitant. But then I said, you know something, I want to make sure that my head and my heart are connected, intellectually and emotionally. I went over there, and I'm extremely happy that I went. And with a number of them, we became friends. I found out that we have more in common than you think. There was a veil of silence on our part, there was a veil of silence on their part. And I talk about it when I have the time, I talk about it. Okay? And these particular young people, they formed a cult, if you want to call it, whatever it is. They have a ministry, and all of them have found out, because the records are open in Germany, they found out what their grandparents did, and all of them are today pro-Israel, okay, fighting anti-Semitism, and they are marching, okay, I think in about, I don't know how many countries, and they do it every single year. So they've been in Israel, they've been in Ukraine, and they've been in all over, okay. So that's why, one thing I want to tell you, everything starts with you. You are not going to respect anybody unless you first learn to respect yourself. Before you are kind to somebody else, learn to be kind to yourself. I've been kind to many people, but there was one person I was not kind to, and that was myself. I forgave a lot of people, but if I made a mistake, it took me a long time to forgive myself. So learn, everything starts with you. The way you treat somebody, that's the way they will treat you. When I was in the shelter, and it's a world that hopefully none of you will ever know, but when I was in the shelter, there were some very rough people that were in jail. But we were in the same situation, and I did not look at them as being jailbirds that were in jail. I looked at them as people being in the same situation that I was. And by treating them with respect, they told everybody, if you touch Sam, you have to deal with us. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. The way you treat somebody, that's the way they will treat you. So first remember, it has to start with you. 1 second, he has the question, yes.
Are you happy that you don't remember what happened?
It's a blessing in disguise, because the first memory that I have is not about the Holocaust. The first memory is after the war, when I was about 7 years old. And I had a nightmare which lasted for a very long time. I was, in my nightmare, I was in the corner of a building, pitch dark. The only lights that I saw, the only sounds that I heard, were from the explosions. Interestingly enough, I was stark naked, and I felt I'm in a void. There is nobody there to help me. Although I lived in a very loving family, that feeling lasted for a very long time. And to the best of my recollections, in grammar school, I have never associated with children my age. It was always with teenagers, always with adults, because that gave me a feeling that I'm protected. And that nightmare lasted for a very, very long time. Yes?
Why can't you see your grandchildren?
Okay, why I can't see my grandchildren? To make it simple, have you heard of such a thing called bitter divorce? Okay, so after bitter divorce, what happened is, after my divorce, I went back to Israel. Okay, so what happened, he lived with my ex, with his mother, whatever she told him, he believes it. I tried to reach him, I saw my grandchildren one time, but he does not want to have any contact with me. People have approached him, I talked to a lot of people, there's nothing I can do. But You don't grow old and remain stupid. So in a few years, okay, my grandkids will become social media savvy, and I will contact them directly, not through my son. Okay, so and besides that, I made arrangements that they will get everything that they're supposed to get. They will know who their grandfather was. One question, before I tell, I have two questions for you. How is it possible that I was officially born in 3 different countries? Oh, you know, oh, go ahead.
If you're on the borders,
Pardon me?
if you're on the borders, if you're on the borders,
Very close. The city that I was born in was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So I was the border's chief, so this is my nationality. So when I came to Israel, okay, my passport said I was born in Romania. I actually grew up there. When I came to the United States in 1968, my passport said I was born in the former Soviet Union. And today it says I was born in Ukraine. So you understand why I'm a mixed up kid, right? Thank you. There was another question, but I forgot what it was. Yes?
What was life in Romania?
That's a very interesting question. Okay, nobody asked me that question. How was life in Romania? Number one, there was not enough food. So we had to steal. So we used to go to different farms, and we did not steal, okay, the fruits when they were ripe, because they only would come beat us up. We did steal them when they were still green. Okay? What happened is there has a sour taste. So even today I would eat a Granny Smith apple and very seldom another type of apple because the Granny Smith has a sour taste. We used to go to farms and steal watermelon, and that has sugar, gives you energy and meals. Okay? Even today, I was in Mexico, it's watermelon season, and boy did I gorge myself on watermelon. Can you imagine living in a house and there is no toilet?
Nope. I mean, I was in camp for a few years where you have to
Where did you go?
outdoors.
Okay.
You have to dig your own toilet.
Outhouse. That is correct. That's what we had. The other thing, can you imagine living in a house and there is no sink? We used to go to a well, and it was quite a long distance. And imagine yourself to fill up 2 pails of water. How many times you have to go, okay, to have 4 people take a bath? Okay. So there were many, many different things. Life in Romania was not easy, okay, but you adjust, you adapt to the circumstances.
Before we continue, I just want to say thank you so much, Sami, for presenting. One of our schools unfortunately has to head out.
Okay. So the ones that stay, you can ask me any questions you want for as long as you want. Okay.
Yes.
All
But
right.
thank you so much for coming.
Do you have the banner?
We do.
Can I take a picture with them?
Yeah.
Or it's too late?
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a picture.
We can stay till 11, but if we want us to go now, we can go.
No, please stay.
Not even realize that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
you'll
perfect.
stay, and then
I said I was in camp.
Everybody online.
I said, Debbie, you said,
be right.
how am I making
By the way, who knows what Moses said? What did Moses do? That's exactly what I'm going to do.
What? Animation really funny. You can realize when you heard it. Like, I want to ask him where he learned it.
speak English.
Well, they would do stuff like air pressure.
Thank you.
I was balancing my Jake's
Yeah, I haven't gotten really any questions, but I mean, there's definitely people watching from all over.
Okay, it's a small group, I don't need the small. Now, ask me any questions that you want, okay?
One question.
And by the way, you can ask me on any subject. Yes.
How did it feel like being a survivor and then like serving in the Israeli Air Force and building the state of Israel?
Okay, imagine yourself being a Holocaust survivor and being in your own country, in serving in the military. It's a sense of pride that you cannot put in words. I want you to remember one thing. We celebrate Memorial Day here in the country. Memorial Day in this country is mostly picnics. That's not in Israel. And I want you to remember something that's very important. During World War II, people died because we did not have a country. Today, we commemorate the people that died to preserve a country. It's a very big difference. Good question.
In one of the slides, a couple slides back,
Yes.
there was like with you and your family. There
Yes.
was a girl, Becky.
That's Betty, that's my sister. She is just a child of Holocaust survivor. She was born in 1946, okay, when we came from former Soviet Union to Romania. When the Romanians allowed, like I told you, a small group of Jews to come back. And she lives in England.
You still in touch with her? You still in touch with her?
Unfortunately, I'm not in touch with her. And you know why? There is a saying, it's called, it takes two to tango. So I want to be in touch with her, she does not want to be in touch with me, and there is very little that you can do. Both parties have to want to do it. Yes. Yes.
Where did you learn to like read and
Pardon me?
where did you learn to speak English and
Uh-huh. Very good question. When I came to the States, I came without money and without the language. So I went to night school to learn English. But because I was fluent in 9 languages, for me to pick up a new language was relatively easy.
right.
And I had in the class, there were mostly people from Germany. And that was in 1961. Today things are different. At that time it was different. And what happened is, they felt that I learned too fast. They did not want me to be in class with them. However, they invited me when everybody graduated. And I was talking to them because I did not come to the States to do politics or whatever it is. I looked at them as human beings. And all of a sudden, one girl asked me where I'm from. And I said, from Israel. And all of a sudden, a block was formed. Everybody pushed back. It was a different life over there. But I had to struggle without the language, without money. And I did not want to go back as a failure. when I felt that I can make it in the States, I wanted to go back, and then I met my ex, and I stayed for another 10 years. Yes.
If you were to meet with someone who said the Holocaust never happened, what would you tell them?
Excellent question. I would not talk to him. For one reason. They are not interested in what you have to say. I spoke in New Jersey at a campus, Bergen Community College. And a Palestinian was there, and he found out that I'm from Israel, and he asked a question. But a question to which there is no answer, or a good answer. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'll give you something to understand. When he came to me and he asked me, why did the Israelis kill 300 Palestinians? There is no context. When did it happen? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? So I tried, this is a very complicated, situation. Both sides made mistakes. But the question is, whatever answer I gave him, or I tried to bring him to a different place, so we have something in common, we can talk, he always came back to the same question. So after a while, I said, you know something, let's agree that we disagree. After everything was over, one student came to me and she said, I did not know that. And I felt that I succeeded, because here is somebody that has an open mind, willing to do some of the research. So what I want you to do when you try to change somebody's perspective, think of it as one person at a time, not globally, one person at a time. Yes?
How did your parents survive?
Pardon me?
How did your parents survive the Holocaust?
My parents?
Yeah.
All three of us, we survived because we were liberated by the Red Army, by the Soviets. So the camp was liberated in 1944. Because it wasn't former Soviet Union, so obviously it was one of the first places that they liberated.
So when you were liberated, where did you go right after that? Like what?
Like I said before, my parents wandered for about 2 years somewhere in former Soviet Union.
Right.
I don't have any details. I don't like to embellish and tell you stories I don't know. All I know is that in 1946 we came to Romania. Okay. They mentioned certain names, but I'm not going to mention it because I don't know if it's true or not true. Maybe I read it somewhere, maybe I heard it from them, but since I don't know for sure, I don't like to mention names of the things that are in my mind, but I don't know if it's true or not.
Can you tell us about your time in the Israeli Air Force?
Pardon me?
Can you tell us about your time in the Israeli Air Force?
In the Israeli Air Force, okay, I was in the 6-Day War, but when you serve in the Air Force, the first thing that is attacked is the airport. After 45 minutes, you're basically a worker in the uniform. Okay? But the first thing that is attacked are the airports. How many of you have heard of a plane called Mirage 3C? At that time, in '62, okay, Israel purchased planes from France. It was the first one with Delta Wing, and the first group that studied the plane went to France. I was in the first class that studied the plane. So for a while, I tested and repaired the cockpit instruments. After that, I worked on the plane itself as electrician electronics. Yes. So I was there for from '62 to '65. Yes.
How old were you when you came to America?
When I came to America, I was not even 29 years old. It's interesting why I came to America. You want to know?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask me?
Why did you come to America?
Oh, thank you. Now I can answer. When I was in the military, I wanted to come to the States to meet the only person that survived, my uncle. By the way, the two brothers met in 1966 for the first time in 47 years, which is normal for a lot of people. But I wanted to meet my Uncle Max. And my aunt developed breast cancer. In 1962, breast cancer was a death sentence. So it was not the proper time. I finished the military, I started my career, I had my friends, and I forgot about travel. Have you heard of something called the Jewish mother? You did? So here it is, I'm almost 29, and my mother said, "You're still single, you're not married, start traveling." And I said, "Mother, I lost my interest." So at every occasion, they started bugging me. Travel. My father joined my mother. So I had to find a compromise. I still did not want to come, but I had to find a compromise. So at that time, in my passport was written that I was born in the former Soviet Union. And the quota was based on the country of origin, and being the most communist country, I knew it will take 5 years. So I said, "No, something, I'll apply to come here as an immigrant, knowing that I will have to wait for 5 years for a visa." So I said, in the meantime, who knows what happens in 5 years? My parents will get off my back. They changed the immigration laws in a very short period of time. I don't know, 2 months or whatever it is. Totally unprepared, no money, no language. America, here I come.
I think we have time
So
for
you-
one more.
Pardon me?
I think there's time for one more question.
Okay.
One more question. Let's see, there's
Two.
two. We'll do two.
Well, you said you were fluent in 9 languages.
Yes.
Can you tell us which ones they were?
Do you know how to count?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can tell you all 9. If I remember. I'll try to remember it in order. German, Russian, Yiddish, Romanian, Latin, French, Hungarian, Hebrew, English.
That's 9.
Yeah, you said 9.
So today I forgot a lot of them. So today I speak English, half Hebrew, okay? And the rest of them, I can use a few words, okay? Some of the languages like Romanian, I can understand it, but I have difficulty talking. Yes. But reading and writing, that I have no problem.
Are there any questions that you wish people ask more often?
Pardon me?
Are there any questions that you wish people ask more often?
The question?
Any questions?
Some of the questions that they ask are common questions, very simple questions. But from time to time, I'm getting some very unusual questions. And I'll give you an example. Somebody asked me, it was not a question, they asked me to summarize my life of 72 years in 2 sentences. If you can do it, God bless you. Okay, I gave an answer, which was on the spot a fairly good answer. By the way, I never prepare myself, I speak from the heart. But interestingly enough, what happened is I went home and I said, how do you answer something like that? And I looked at my life and I looked at the 3 most important moments in my life. So number 1 was the birth of my son. 2 That is the highest high that you can have. It's not something I can teach you. It's something you will have to experience. The second one, I knew hate, but not from here. That's easy to overcome from here. I know what hate can do to a human being. I was there. I overcame it. Today, I'm unable to hate anybody. And number three, you may be surprised, being homeless. By being homeless, I started volunteering. And by volunteering, I have achieved what I achieved today. It's the best thing. Okay, besides the birth of my son, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And people ask me if I regret something, and I said absolutely nothing, because the slightest thing that would have changed, I wouldn't be where I am today. And the final, you did not ask a question, but I will tell you, how do you overcome something not being able to be in touch with your grandchildren and still be a happy person? So we all have a want and a need. My personal want is I want to go to Australia. If it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, no big deal. But I have a need to teach and to share. I cannot do it with my son. I cannot do it with my grandchildren. So for the time being that I'm talking to you like I talk here, whether you know it or not, for the 2 hours, you have become my substitute grandchildren. And that allows me not to live in the past, not to be angry, not to blame anybody, and to be able to move forward and to enjoy life. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And do me a favor, please stand up when somebody tells a lie. It's your word, make it a better one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nothing better than